Tatsmeiwi. Babe Chimachat. It's a very good day, and a special welcome to everyone on this beautiful day, this beautiful Father's Day. All the fathers out there, have a great day with family and friends. I'll be your celebrant this morning. I'm Rodney Paul Fry, the name given to me by my parents, Wallace and Jean Fry, in 1950. So began my life's journey. So what's in a name? Two names? 3 names? I've been fortunate, I've been honored to receive 2 additional names. So if I could take a moment to introduce my other 2 names to you. In 1976, Tom Yellowtail invited me into the Apsaloki Crow Sundance to blow the whistle and fast for the health of my son, Matthew. So began my spiritual journey. In preparation for completing my 4th Sundance, during a medicine bundle ceremony, Grandpa Tom bestowed on me, besides adoption, the name Moguch Shijilish, seeking to help others. To be used on those special revered communication occasions. Several years later, actually about 30, in 2006, a second Indian name was given. This time I was on a healing journey with cancer, and I was invited to attend Cliff Syjon's family Sichuamch Coeur d'Alene jump dance. During this sacred dance, Cliff bestowed on me the name Kwakwilskiki, Little Red Hawk, one who has keen abilities to observe, nice for an anthropologist, and provide for others. Each of these names have had great responsibility added to them, each helping set my journey and guide my way. In the mid-1970s, at the same time I started sundancing, I began what I thought at the time was a separate, very different journey of becoming a Unitarian. While going to graduate school, I was attending the Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. And now, in this loving community here, I continue that journey with you. What's intriguing to me, while participating in both the indigenous and Unitarian journeys over these years, they seemingly so different, distinct as different can be. Their intersection only became overtly clear to me, sort of an aha moment, at the conclusion of last fall's class that many of you, we took together. That class on Namipu, UUCP, Memorandum of Understanding, which, by the way, we're going to offer again this fall. While acknowledging the important cultural and historic differences, when we go to their core, to the values that line this sanctuary, that are embedded in your hearts, they're in complete alignment. They are shared in common with the values of the indigenous I've come to appreciate over these last 50 years. Absolutely in alignment. And how many times have we had an elder come into the sanctuary for the first time and look around? I don't know what they're anticipating seeing in a church, but what they see, oh, those are our values too. And I ask, could this alignment be an expression of what the Nemiku call Héetewit Wéetés? Héetewit Wéetés, this precious land, that foundational, that inseparable, that interconnected relationship between all the peoples, human, animal, plant, spirit, with the land. Relations up of inclusion, relationships of inclusion, equity, respect, compassion for the diversity that is all. And I wonder. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all those joining us for the first time. Really glad you're with us today. If you haven't already stopped by, pay a visit to the visitor desk in the foyer and pick up a name tag and a newcomer's packet. Our welcome committee, those with the yellow tags, raise your hands. Everybody has a yellow tag. What can I say? We all can be representatives, can provide additional information. Please join us online. If you're online, join us by filling out the welcoming form at the website and answer any questions, or ask any questions. We've got the answers. You ask the questions. Or join us for coffee and conversation after the service downstairs in the fellowship hall or on our Zoom room. We're here to support you. This is a home. So let us begin with the spirit of the words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, genders. All are welcome here. Now let's take a moment to say hello, Tatsmewi, across the technical divide. First, for those on Zoom, please turn on your camera and wave and say, Tatsmewi. And now it's your turn. Those attending the service today in our building, please wave and say, Tatsmewi. Perfect. We have a couple announcements. Lisa Salisbury.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to put on your radar, in case it isn't already, that next Saturday we are going to be having an amazing performance event at the Kenworthy Theatre, Diva Night. Several of the performers are from our church, including me, including Reverend Elizabeth, Chelsea Llewellyn, and Donna Parks. Sam is involved. It's going to be, the UUCP is also a sponsor, and so we have 2 free tickets to give away if you can't purchase a ticket. But the money raised is going to help us fight really, really hard to get the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act passed on the ballot this November. So, yeah. So please come buy a ticket soon if you can attend, because they are going fast. The event is Saturday, June 27th, starting at 7 p.m. at the Kenworthy. The doors will open at 6:30. It looks like there may not be tickets available at the door. They are selling really quickly. So if you go to the UUCP Facebook page or the Bands Off Moscow website, just search Bands Off Moscow. You can buy your ticket online there. And I hope to see you there. It's going to be a fantastic show. Thank you.
And I have an announcement. On Monday the 29th, many of you have been involved with the MIPU UUCP Memorandum of Understanding. On Monday the 20th at 7 o'clock here in the sanctuary, 29th, we'll have a review of what was accomplished in 2025. Go over the list of things accomplished, and more importantly, those things that we've initiated and beginning to work and develop with the tribe for 2026. 25, 26, okay. Anyway, it's open to the public and everyone's welcome. So again, that's Monday the 29th. Anyone else? than here and the announcements. The land on which our church is built is part of the ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq, the people, and mistakenly called the Nez Perce or pierced noses by the French-speaking trappers and traders. We acknowledge that the land is held in sacred kinship since time immemorial. The land and its people suffered immeasurable trauma brought by Euro-American peoples, and we are working with its resilient peoples to show respect and contribute to the healing and nurturing of this Héetewit Wéetés precious land and all its people. May we acknowledge the help that we can provide, the courage that we need, and provide action to help restore the wholeness of the land and all its peoples. So let's light our chalice. We're hoping folks joining us on Zoom will have a chalice to light and something to light it with. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather together the heat to share. Please be seated.
Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens, and I'm lucky enough to be serving this congregation for at least another week and a half as its minister. Happy summer solstice, and happy Father's Day to those of you who celebrate. Today's service topic was chosen by Pat and Dan Rathman. They won the right to choose during last month's service auction, and one of the conditions was you had to let me know right away so I had enough time to prepare. So they won the auction. Dan said to Pat, "Okay, Pat, what do you want her to preach on?" Pat said, "Indigenous people," and left it unspecific beyond that. So I just want to start by saying thank you for the latitude. I'm taking it in a direction you might not have anticipated. I hope you'll forgive me. Now, most of us in this room grew up with a Western European worldview, which means there were a lot of things that we were taught about the nature of reality, and we accepted those things as fact, when in fact they were one culture's way of perceiving the world. So this morning, I'm going to invite us to first notice and then perhaps release some of these so-called facts and explore what it might mean to see the world through the lens of indigenous cultures, particularly when it comes to 4 specific frameworks. What if, rather than consumer economics, supply and demand, endless profit, etc., we chose to embrace a gift economy? So gift economy instead of consumer economy. What if we understood time as cyclical rather than linear? What if we replaced hierarchy and patriarchy with matriarchy? Which I just want to say, in the Indigenous framework, is not just about putting women in charge, although that one might be a good start, but about understanding leadership as a way of being caring, of looking out for others, so that the most compassionate and generous people are the ones that belong in leadership rather than those who are most powerful, right? And then fourth, last but definitely not least, what if we saw the natural world not as objects, but subjects, as sacred beings worthy of reverence and respect. This is a concept called animacy. Now, as I've been thinking about these things and working on this service, the song that's been stuck in my head is Free Your Mind by En Vogue. Yeah. Free your mind and the rest will follow. So, I just want to name that it's more than the work of a single hour to deconstruct a whole worldview and decolonize our minds. But it's a worthwhile task to play with, to investigate, to explore, in large part because the Western worldview has brought us to this historical moment where the very survival of our species is at risk. Some of the things that we've accepted as truths lead us down a path that seems to dead end in disaster. So for my part, I'm ready to try and find a different way. I'm ready to learn from indigenous cultures. Are there other, better ways to be human? But first, let's begin by singing. This is hymn number 134, Our World is One World. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, whichever is more comfortable.
Our Namipu relatives have a word for generosity. Taka, to give and share with others, particularly those in need, without thought of return, without thought of what's in it for me, an unselfish act of gifting to others. And I wonder if taka is the dynamic, the blood that flows through the veins and animates Héetewit Wéetés, this precious land and all of its relations. Taka. Let's take a moment to engage together in the practice of generosity. For those who are able to make a contribution, the logistics are on the screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday's service to local charities whose missions align with ours, whose mission aligns with our values. A program called Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is the Héetewit Recovery Center, whose mission is to help individuals enter and engage in recovery from addictions and mental health disorders through peer-to-peer interaction and evidence evidence-based practices to promote healthy community. They support all peoples and all types of recovery. So please donate to Month of Sundays on your check.
For our meditation today, we're going to hear the poet Joy Harjo read her poem, A Map to the Next World. It is a little bit longer than our usual meditation, so I'm going to invite you to perhaps close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Let the words wash over you, and just notice what are the images or the feelings that arise in response to her words.
I'm Joy Harjo, and this is A Map to the Next World. In the last days of the fourth world, I wish to make a map for those who would climb through the hole in the sky. My only tools were the desires of humans as they emerged from the killing fields, from the bedrooms and the kitchens. For the soul is a wanderer with many hands and feet. The map must be made of sand and can't be read by ordinary light. It must carry fire to the next tribal town for renewal of spirit. In the legend are instructions on the language of the land and how it was we forgot to acknowledge the gift as if we were not it or of it. Take note of the proliferation of supermarkets and malls, the altars of money. They best describe the detour from grace. Keep track of the errors of our forgetfulness. The fog steals our children while we sleep. Flowers of rage spring up in the depression. Monsters are born there of nuclear anger. Trees of ashes wave goodbye to goodbye, and the map appears to disappear. We no longer know the names of the birds here or how to speak to them by their personal names. Once we knew everything in this lush promise. What I am telling you is real and is printed in a warning on the map. Our forgetfulness stalks us, walks the earth beside us, leaving a trail of paper diapers, needles, and wasted blood. An imperfect map will have to do, little one. The place of entry is the sea of your mother's blood, your father's small death as he longs to know himself in another. There is no exit. The map can be interpreted through the wall of the intestine, a spiral on the road of knowledge. You will travel through the membrane of death, smell cooking from the encampment where our relatives make a feast of fresh deer meat and corn soup in the Milky Way. They have never left us. We abandoned them for science. And when you take your next breath, as we enter the fifth world, there will be no X, no guidebook with words you can carry. You will have to navigate by your mother's voice, renew the song she is singing. Fresh courage glimmers from planets and lights the map printed with the blood of history, a map you will have to know by your intention, by the language of suns. When you emerge, note the tracks of the monster slayers, where they entered the cities of artificial light and killed what was killing us. You will see red cliffs. They are the heart, contain the ladder. A white deer will come to greet you when the last human climbs from the destruction. We were never perfect, yet the journey we make together is perfect on this earth, who was once a star and made the same mistakes as humans. We might make them again, she said. Crucial to finding the way is this: there is no beginning or end, and you must make your own.
You must make your own map. Amen, and blessed be. just brilliant. I love the way your brain works. I'd like to share a reading by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is from The Serviceberry, An Economy of Abundance. She writes, "Gratitude and reciprocity are the currency of a gift economy, and they have the remarkable property of multiplying with every exchange, their energy concentrating as they pass from hand to hand, a truly renewable resource. I accept the gift from the bush, and then spread that gift with a dish of berries to my neighbor, who makes a pie to share with his friend, who feels so wealthy in food and friendship that he volunteers at the food pantry. You know how it goes." To name the world as a gift is to feel one's membership in the web of reciprocity. It makes you happy, and it makes you accountable. Conceiving of something as a gift changes your relationship to it in a profound way, even though the physical makeup of the thing has not changed. A woolly knit hat that you purchase at the store will keep you warm regardless of its origin. But if it was hand knit by your favorite auntie, then you are in relationship to that thing in a very different way. You are responsible for it, and your gratitude has motive force in the world. You're likely to take much better care of the gift hat than the commodity hat because it is knit of relationships. This is the power of gift thinking. I imagine if we acknowledge that everything we consume is the gift of Mother Earth, we would take better care of what we are given. Mistreating a gift has emotional and ethical gravity as well as ecological resonance. How we think ripples out to how we behave. If we view these berries or that coal or forest as an object, as property, it can be exploited as a commodity in a market economy. We know the consequences of that. Why then have we permitted the dominance of economic systems that commoditize everything, that create scarcity instead of abundance, that promote accumulation rather than sharing? We've surrendered our values to an economic system that actively harms what we love. The entire system of Western economics rests on the concept of scarcity. The more rare a thing is, the more valuable. As resources become readily available, less value is assigned to them. Do you see how that prevents us from finding the balance point? How it keeps us from creating a sustainable society? What becomes possible if we choose instead to believe that the gifts the earth offers are inherently enough for all the earth's inhabitants? What happens if we release the idea of ownership and instead move through life as part of a living system? If we see ourselves not as having dominion over the world or even as stewards of the world, but part of the world itself, elements of the world, our focus might shift from what we own to what we're able to give. We might stop trying to get ahead, and we might start trying to get it right instead. We might start trying to play the part that we're uniquely suited to play. We'd be grateful and accountable and happy, and all that sounds pretty darn good to me. How about you? Money is made up. It is a human invention. And I don't actually know how it might work to transition away from this made-up money game that we are stuck playing. But I imagine it might actually look something like being a part of this congregation. You know what I love is the free shelf. I really love the free shelf downstairs. When we have something we don't need, or maybe something that we've made, we put it on the free shelf for someone else to take. When we have an abundance of produce, it shows up at coffee hour for people to just take home. And, you know, being a minister in this kind of community, like I've gotten used to having just random bags of fruit show up on my porch in the fall during harvest season. Sometimes I don't even know who left it there. If we do have to play the money game, and to some extent we do, does it help to just understand it as a game? Is there a way to rig the game and make it align with our values a little bit more? You know, we used to have game nights when my boys were little, and at a certain stage in their development, you know, board games were boring, and so they wanted to play poker. So we got poker chips, and we would play poker. And I am very, very bad at poker. And so I would play a few hands, and then I would go bust, and then I wasn't part of the family game night anymore. And so we made up a new rule. When someone goes bust in our family when we are playing poker, whoever has the most chips has to give half of their chips to the person who just went bust. And, you know, the boys pushed back at first. Well, how are we going to know who wins? Are we even going to remember who won yet, you know, tomorrow morning? It just doesn't make any difference. So all of a sudden, poker was a heck of a lot more fun. You know, one of these days, Elon Musk is going to die. Within a few decades, all of those trillions that he has been hoarding are going to do him exactly zero good. If he actually understood that, maybe he wouldn't be such a greedy and selfish man. We have limited power to control how Elon and the others in the billionaire class are playing the game, but we can choose how we play it. In the few decades, our own savings aren't going to do us any good either. But they can do a lot of good here and now, alleviating suffering, feeding the hungry, caring for the sick. So what would it be like to experiment with a shift to the gift economy model at the microcosm level, at the level of a family, at the level of this church community? I think the church actually already functions in a lot of ways like a gift economy, even though it still exists in the wider context of consumerism. But I wonder if we were to be just a little bit more mindful about it, if we were to name it that way, that we're trying to establish a gift economy, if we talked about the differences we see, even the challenges that we bump up against, maybe that could serve the greater good sometime down the road, when and if that other made-up thing called capitalism collapses. Just a thought. So we are going to sing a song, Where Do We Come From? It has 4 distinct parts. So we're going to, at some point, be singing 4 different things at the same time. You can do it. I know you can. To learn the song, what we're going to do is we're going to sing each of the parts 3 times in between these explorations of indigenous ideas. Okay? So this one sounds like this. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Got it? Awesome. Okay, remember that. We're going to come back to it. Okay, so now we have a few memes. You know, if you go on your Instagram or Facebook and you start following Decolonize, just put in Decolonize as a hashtag, you start getting just fantastic stuff. It's Use technology for good. There we go. Okay, so these are actually memes that came across my feed, and I think they're beautiful. It is a colonial lie that all things must come to an end. All life is cyclical. There are no endings, there is no death, there is only transformation. Everything is energy, energy is infinite. There is no countdown. You have time. The deadline is movable, malleable, changeable. You can move at your own pace. A sense of urgency does not always serve you. You can move slowly and with intention. You do not need to earn time for yourself. It already belongs to you. It is yours to spend on whatever you choose. You are not falling behind. You are doing exactly what you need to be doing right now. Time does not govern your life. Your presence in the moment is a reclamation of your sovereignty. You are never running out of time. Time is impermanent in nature. It moves with us. You are right on time. You are not experiencing a loss of time. You are the universe experiencing itself one frame at a time. That may be my favorite. You are not meant to know what's to come. The unknown is also a promise of discovery. Every breath you take carries you forward into a new frame of existence. You are a portal. Every breath of your ancestors has served this moment. You are infinite. The lives of your ancestors are like threads in the tapestry of life. It was woven for you. You aren't too old, and there is no rush. Age is a gift. It's okay to spend time on things that feel good. You deserve joy. To rest is also to dream, to contemplate, to ground. You deserve time to dream. You are creating with every moment. Indigenous futurism requires you to build it with intention. It requires your honesty and self-compassion. A new reality needs kindness, softness, reflection, and intentionality. Liberation also means releasing the spiritual shackles that bind us to colonialism, capitalism, and suffering. Another world is possible. It is already here. So let's talk about the rat race. This Western conception of time as linear pressures us to make the most of the time we have. We race around trying to build as much as we can. And sometimes we forget that, the finish line, that's death. Maybe it's not meant to be either a marathon or a sprint, but a relay race. What shifts when we think of ourselves not as ego-based individuals with start and end dates, but part of a bigger collective, a thread in a weaving that has a pattern we can't fully comprehend? One iteration of a spiral, filling a role that was filled by our ancestors in years past and will someday be filled by our own descendants. What shifts? If we understand that it's the collective, the weaving, the spiral that is actually real and that matters, as opposed to our particular experience in this particular flesh suit that we are wearing. In many indigenous cultures, the energy of the ancestors is understood to linger. I remember one very memorable conversation with someone who explained why it's so important that we be respectful when we're exploring ancient indigenous settlements. She said, it's not just that you're moving through a grave, it's not like you're moving through a graveyard or something. For us, our ancestors are still there. You are visiting their home. Their energy is still there. The least you could do is be a respectful guest. Now, with this understanding of cyclical rather than linear time, we still have an obligation to learn and grow. We still are going to get stuff done, but we might understand that the reason for our effort isn't personal glorification, but contributing in some meaningful way to the overall well-being of the interdependent web. Like I said a couple of weeks ago when we were reflecting on legacies, both the ones we inherit and the ones we leave as part of this community, the way I want my legacy attached to my name, the particularities of my story, that feels like ego to me. The better angels of my nature whisper that when I'm able to release that desire, something truly beautiful happens. It actually brings me joy and comfort to imagine a vast network behind me of people whose names and faces we may not remember, but without whom I would not exist. Right? It feels good. It feels right to relinquish my individualness and merge with them, supporting the growth of some unknown future, one that wouldn't exist without me, without the legacy that I'm creating here and now. It takes the pressure off, especially in a historical moment like this one, when it feels like society is collectively moving backwards, because it's not on me to finish this race. I just have to do what I can in the time that I've got. It makes more space for rest and self-compassion, makes space for our humanity, for us to be human beings, not just human doings. It allows for reflection, intentionality. It gives us room. And to me, that feels both healing and healthy. All right, let's sing the second part of the song. Okay. Remember that part too. Our next reading is a reel. I make you wear too many hats.
A German philosopher named Héetewit Wéetés spent decades researching indigenous societies across Asia, Africa, and the Americas, and what she found challenged everything that most of us were taught about how human beings are capable of organizing themselves. She said that matriarchies are not the opposite of patriarchy. They are not women ruling over men. They are mother-centered societies built on caretaking, nurturing, and the protection of everyone in the group, men included. In these societies, if a man wanted status, if he wanted to be respected and represent his people, he had to be like a good mother. Not dominant, not aggressive, but accountable to the well-being of others. This is a completely different definition of male leadership than anything that I grew up with. But if you look at the current system, what it's actually producing is that men account for over 90% of all violent crime. They commit nearly all mass shootings. They are the primary perpetrators of domestic violence and child abuse and sexual assault. And they also die by suicide 4 times the rate of women. The same structure that makes men dangerous is also the one that makes men desperate, and that's not what I would call like an individual failure. It's what the system is built in dominance, and it's created over generations. So here's what most people don't know, is that indigenous matriarchal leadership models sustain entire nations since time immemorial. Okay, and so it was colonization driven by these systems of violent gender-based policies that deliberately dismantled them, right? These true matriarchal systems were rooted in the understanding that women are direct reflections of the land and the waters, the earth. Women were the conduit for healthy and strong communities. So colonization took the land and also took the governance structures that were protecting life amongst indigenous communities. So there's a word for that that we're going to call back, which is rematriation. So it's linked to land back movement, and it goes deeper. This is where my mind goes, is who will steward the land and the air and the water, the natural law, who will sing and give the prayers and the ceremonies for the women and the children right? And the generations that come. Leadership in governance and ceremony, land stewardship has to be carried within a truth, which is you cannot restore the land without restoring yourself. You have to restore systems that protect that. That's why I say leadership that we need cannot come from inside this framework that we've been existing in. It has good intentions are not enough. Colonization without re-indigenization isn't complete. Liberation isn't just about dismantling the colonial structure. It's about building and embodying the ancestral narratives. So if you see yourself as a selected or advised one necessary, then you will be held accountable by a council. You can't just call in matriarchy, we have to re-indigenize what that means, not of nostalgia, but as a living practice. So we have to get back to our language. So I'm here to educate the youth around re-indigenizing and what leadership looks like. So go ahead and check out my links in bio model.
He talks fast. I hope you caught most of that. Okay, so patriarchy is a death cult, and systems of oppression, patriarchy, but also white supremacy, classism, etc., are the water we swim in. They're the air we breathe. Our entire society is built on this false premise that some people are inherently better or more worthy than others. We made that up too. If one accepts the premise, then it makes sense that the people with power and resources should be the ones making decisions. They're winning this other make-believe game that we came up with. Of course they're more important. Unfortunately, most of these important people use the power they're granted to accumulate more power and resources, which reinforces the system of oppression and magnifies inequity. Honestly, if I could, I would burn it all down. But what would we replace it with? That's the question. Yet again, we have this invitation from indigenous societies to consider this alternative. What he said, matriarchy is not just flipping things and putting the women in charge. It's a completely new paradigm, one that makes intuitive sense. What leadership looks like is acting like a good mother, regardless of your gender, caring for, supporting, being accountable to. Now, one of the arguments for those systems of oppression is that they are biologically driven. I know I've even said we're tribal omnivores. In a way, we're hardwired to prioritize the people who look and act like us, the people we consider to be part of our tribe. What indigenous matrifocal communities demonstrate, though, is that prioritizing doesn't have to mean hoarding wealth and power at the expense of those who aren't part of our tribe. It can mean a simple choice to care for the people who are within our sphere of influence. There's actually a biological argument that supports the idea we might be hardwired for matriarchy too, you know. In all of nature, there are only 6 species where biological females go through menopause: humans and 5 species of toothed whales. And all 5 of those whale species organize themselves into matriarchal pods. All 5 of them. Kind of makes sense to me. As a postmenopausal female-bodied human, menstruation and pregnancy and childbearing and nursing, they all require tremendous expenditures of energy. And once that was all over, there's a lot of, we need a productive outlet. For me, neither sourdough nor birding quite cut it. You get to this place where you have the time and you have the energy and you have something that feels a little bit like wisdom, and also you have way fewer F's to give. You still have focus and drive and physical and emotional and spiritual strength. And that can be used in service of the greater good. I'll tell you this much. Were I to be in a position of national leadership, I certainly wouldn't be nodding off during important discussions. And jokes aside, I am in a position of power on a smaller level, and I'm inclined to use that power to care for others. It feels right to protect people who are vulnerable, to be fierce to support people who are struggling, to defend people who are under attack. You know, whatever the gender of our leaders, clergy or lay, this community functions more like a matriarchy than a patriarchy, and a matriarchy in the indigenous sense of the word. This is a place where we take care of each other and use our resources, time, energy, and money to make sure that our people, our tribe, are okay. And each day we do what we can to make sure that that tribe, is always getting bigger. It is a beautiful thing. Okay, here's actually the fourth part. And if you notice we skipped the third part, there's a reason for that. Just trust me. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Did I get that right? Did I get that right? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? All right, you got it? Ish, that might be the hard one. I'll try and do that one when we get to the grand finale. Okay, we have another reading from Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is from Learning the Grammar of Animacy. Imagine seeing your grandmother standing there at the stove in her apron and then saying, "Look, it is making soup. It has gray hair." We might snicker at such a mistake, but recoil from it also. In English, we never refer to a member of our family as it, or indeed any other person. Such grammar would be a profound act of disrespect. It robs a person of selfhood and kinship, reducing a person to a mere thing. So it is in Potawatomi and most other indigenous languages. We use the same grammar to address the living world as we do our family, because it is our family. To whom does our language extend the grammar of animacy? Not just our human relatives, but all our relations. Naturally, plants and animals are animate, but as I learn vocabulary, I'm also discovering that the Potawatomi, there it is. I did practice and then I forgot, Potawatomi. Understanding of what it means to be animate diverges from the list of attributes of living beings we all learned in Biology 101. In Potawatomi 101, I learned that rocks are addressed as animate, as are mountains and water and fire and places. Those being imbued with spirit deserve their own grammar, including our sacred medicines, our songs, drums, and even stories are animate. The list of the inanimate seems to be smaller. Objects which are made by people often fall in this category. Of an inanimate being, like a table, we say, "What is it?" And we answer, "Daponyewe, table it is." But of apple, we must say, "Who is it?" And reply, "Mishimin Yahweh, apple he is." My boys still tease me about the year I planted way too many snap peas. This was when we lived on the west side, and it was my first year putting in a real garden. I started the seeds indoor, and I just planted all of the peas that came in that little seed packet. I didn't know any better. So I wound up with probably 50 or 60 little snap pea seedlings. And when it came time to transplant them, they were all thriving and healthy. So I filled up first one bed and then two, and then I started tucking them against the garden wall and next to the compost bin and alongside the porch. So as you might imagine, when it came time to pick the pods, we had so many peas. We gave them to everybody we knew. My boys to this day refuse to eat them. For weeks, every Sunday, I would bring this huge salad bowl full of pea pods to the church, and they were sweet and crispy and delicious. But, you know, it was a lot of snap peas. And when someone asked me why I hadn't just composted the extras, I said I didn't want to hurt his feelings. See, I've always ascribed beingness to non-human things. When I was little, my toys were he's and she's. I cared about their feelings too. I've always talked to trees. My relationship with my dog is a negotiation, all of which is simply to say that the commodification of the world is not inherent. I know, it's not inherent. This is a product of culture. In indigenous communities, as she noted, the only things called it are those that are made by humans, chairs and cars and asphalt roads. Everything else has life and agency. Everything else has a voice. And that means we humans move through this complex, dynamic landscape, and the animals and the plants and geological and hydrological features have a voice. And if we listen, we can learn from them. Now, when it comes to animals, we recognize the signs of defensiveness when an animal is telling us to back off. We recognize the signs of aggression. If a bull's about to charge us, we certainly don't need a translator to tell us how to run. We can tell when an animal is feeling threatened or sad, bored or lonely. We can see when they're feeling playful or joyful. The word compassion means simply to feel with, and I think we naturally have compassion for other animals. There's a reason why those ads narrated by Sarah McLachlan raised so much money for the Humane Society. You know, those sad-eyed puppies. We can tell by looking at plants whether they're healthy and happy or struggling. And I don't know about you, but if I'm walking through the forest and I come to a clear cut, it breaks my heart. It feels like a scar, like an act of violence, like a bloody, painful place. Lately, I've been trying to cultivate a relationship with the plants in my yard. I'll sit down and say, okay, what do you need? How can I support your well-being? I'm trying to see that more as a relationship or a partnership. I've heard the voices of inanimate objects too. I've sat next to a glacier and listened to it breathe. Glaciers are ancient and wise. I love talking to rocks. They shift and erode and change, and usually at a pace so slow we can't see it. But they tell me that on a molecular level, even the most solid-seeming rocks are made up of moving subatomic particles and a lot of empty space. They're humming along. And if we listen, we can start thinking in geologic time. We can tune into that voice of the 3.8 million year old basalt, and it has some incredible stories, I'll tell you what. Meteorologists are able to listen to the sky. I feel like in talking or communicating with the natural world, close observation is the first step, and the proper attitude, an attitude of reverence, is the next. We're living in a time when we're bumping against the limits of consumer culture that objectifies and commodifies everything, including people. So reconnecting to reality with this deep understanding that everything that exists is sacred, has animacy, can shift our perceptions and then our opinions and then our behaviors towards sanity and sustainability. So I'm going to give you some homework. Every day, try to listen to something that isn't human. Try to cultivate a relationship with, the wind, with plants or animals, rocks or sunlight or the northern lights or meteor showers. When we turn off our devices and turn away from the false teachings of culture, we invariably find inspiration, but also healing and hope. We can feel into something that is true, that is not just a made-up game. We human beings and our society are not separate. We are not separate from the earth. We're not separate from nature. We're not separate from each other. We are part of that interdependent web of all life, of all existence. And we can trust those connections. We need to listen to the messages flowing toward us through that web. As we work to develop cultural competency, we first need to come to understand that our culture is just that, culture, not objective truth. We have to free our minds. We have to understand that the culture is the lens through which we experience the world, and like all lenses, it distorts reality. One way to become better at identifying the distortions is to look at the world sometimes through different lenses that come from other cultures. In particular, these perspectives, borrowed from indigenous worldviews, might help us move through the challenges we're facing. We all know that dominant culture, consumer culture, is leading us off a cliff, but we don't need to be lemmings. We can choose another way, another path. It just might be that these ancient perspectives hold the key to building a sustainable future. So be it, and so may it be. All right, now we're going to try all 4 parts. The last part is my favorite. It goes mystery, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Okay, so we're going to do all 4. How many of you like the first part? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Okay, we need about a quarter of you to do that. Raise your hands if you think you can hold that one. Awesome. Okay, all right. So if you raise your hand, you sing the first part. The second part. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? How many of you think you can hold that one? Okay, we need a few more. Come on, a few more hands. All right, there we go. Okay, we got some strong singers on that one. We'll be okay. All right. What about the where do we come from? Where are we going? How many think you can do that one? All right, perfect. And then last but not least, who wants to do mystery? Okay, there we go. We got a good segment doing mystery. Now, if you get bored with your part, switch. Life is a riddle and a mystery, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. smokes, that was awesome! Woo! Our closing reading is Robin Wall Kimmerer again. The fork in the road stands atop a hill. To the left, the path is soft and green and spangled with dew. You want to go barefoot. The path to the right is ordinary pavement, deceptively smooth at first, but then it drops out of sight into the hazy distance, and just over the horizon, it is buckled with heat and broken to jagged shards. In the valleys below the hill, I see the people of the seventh fire walking toward the crossroads with all they have gathered. They carry in their bundles the precious seeds for a change of worldview, not so they can return to some atavistic utopia, but to find the tools that allow us to walk into the future. So much has been forgotten, but it is not lost as long as the land endures and we cultivate people who have the humility and ability to listen and learn. And the people are not alone. All along the path, non-human people help. What knowledge the people have forgotten is remembered by the land. The others want to live too. The path is lined with all the world's people in all the colors of the medicine wheel, red, white, black, yellow, who understand the choice ahead, who share a vision of respect and reciprocity, of fellowship with the more than human world. Men with fire, women with water to reestablish balance, to renew the world. Friends and allies all, they are falling in step, forming a great long line headed for the barefoot path. May we join them. I invite you to rise one last time to sing our musical benediction, There's Love. Please join me in the words to embody our chalice flame. Joe, could you put it out? We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. May we find the barefoot paths. May we find joy and peace. May we claim the perspectives that lead us not off a cliff, but to connection. And may we know that every step is taken in love. Go in peace. Come back next Sunday.